Well, overall truck sales are actually down for Q1 of 2026. This is coming in on pickuptrucktalk.com, but we're going to go through this. I want to get your guys' thoughts. Why do you think Ram and Nissan, Ram specifically and the Nissan Frontier, are up and the Tacoma's up and everyone else seems to be down? So let's go through the half tons really quick here. Now, this is surprising to me because Ford F-150s or Ford F-Series in general, you look at Q1 of last year, 190,000 versus this year, 159,000. That's a 16% loss. And don't just look at the percentage loss, you got to look at the numbers. Specifically with Ford, that is a big loss. We're talking 30,000 fewer trucks sold, which Ford is kind of surprising to me because their engines aren't failing and their transmissions don't seem to be quite as many problems as GM. So I'm just surprised to see that Ford dropped that many. But hey, you guys will have to let me know why you think that is. You really think it's just the GPF in the 3.5 liter EcoBoost? I don't think it is, because a lot of people are buying the 2.7s and the 5.0s still. Moving on to the Silverado, about the same. Light duty, heavy duty Chevy. It looks like the light duty Chevy actually went up. So you're talking 1,500 are up, and then the heavy duties are down 11%. Kind of weird. I think maybe some of those heavy duty people are just punting and moving to Ram. That's what I see. They want that ZF transmission. But let's move on to the headline story, Ram trucks. Okay, so last year, 78,848. This year, 98,425. So up 24% for Ram. Here's why I think Ram went up. I think they have a ZF transmission. People know that that's going to most likely be reliable. There's been a couple that have failed in Facebook groups and other areas, but overall, the 8HP is just a super reliable transmission. It's at least usually going to get you through warranty, which is what people want, more than you can say for a lot of the GM stuff, and even some potentially on Ford. There's also the Hurricane engine. The Hurricane and the Hemi both. I don't think this is all attributed to the Hemi. I think this is both the Hurricane and the Hemi being two of the half-ton platforms that aren't spinning main bearings and aren't having lifter failure. I really think that's what this is about, along with the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty that Ram offers. Nobody else is backing their vehicles like Ram right now. I think if GM, Ford, Toyota said, hey, we're going to offer a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, I think they'd see a huge boost in sales. Do I think they can pull that off? No, I don't, because I don't think they want to stand behind their products that much, at least right now. We'll see if that changes, but let's see. If Toyota is as good as everybody claims it is, then back your vehicles. 10-year, 100,000-mile. All these manufacturers should do that. That's what I believe. I think that is a big part of these sales numbers, and I think we're going to continue to see Ram make gains if they can continue on this track record, if they continue not to have engine failures and transmission failures. Now, if they revert back and they start behaving like GM and Ford and Toyota, and they start having spun main bearings or transmission problems, then yeah, we're going to see the same problem with Ram. But yeah, so both Ram light duty up 27% and Ram heavy duty up 21%. I think they're just benefiting from everyone else's problems right now. GMC Sierra down 3.8%, the light duty's down 2%, and the heavy-duty GM Sierra's down 7.9%. That's compared to last year. So it's not like we're talking, down from December. We're comparing to 2025, Q1 of 2025 to 2026. The Tundra is down 2.6%. That's not really that much. The Tundra is still historically, I think, elevated. So if you look at the second-gen Tundra sales numbers, I think the third-gen is still definitely outselling the second-gen for a longer than the second-gen kind of went on its selling streak. It still looks good for as far as sales numbers for Toyota. And I will say that from what I can tell in the groups, I still don't see a lot of 2026 Tundra failures. We've seen a couple here and there, but not anything like what we saw in, 23, 24, 25. All right, so moving on to the midsize. So a couple, I think, key things here. One is the Toyota Tacoma. They finally had a full year of stock. They didn't have any stock problems for all of 2025. So the Tacoma sold 69,000 in Q1 of this year, up 15.8%. Part of that, too, I think, is due to their lease deals. They've had some really aggressive lease deals, but Toyota's really been pushing the Tacoma. That's always been their bread and butter. They're going to sell a ton of Tacomas. And compared to the Tundras, the reliability of the Tacoma, if you look past maybe the first 2 or 3 months where they had 1,000 or 2,000 transmissions that were under this TSB problem. They've had pretty good luck so far. The only issues I ever see with the Tacoma are the top hats failing. You've seen a couple engines go down, some transmission wonkiness, but compared to the numbers they've sold, the Tacomas seem to be pretty reliable. And the people that came from the old gen Tacoma to this newer gen, they really like the transmission. They like the drivability of the Turbo 4. A lot of these folks are probably just getting leases or planning to cycle these things out. So you have to look at, I think it's two different crowds of people. You have the old school Tacoma people that really want to keep something for 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 miles. They're probably still stuck in the previous gen. And then you have this new guard of people that are just willing to risk it. They love the drivability. They love the torque and power of the turbo engine. And they're not going to keep it out of warranty anyway. A lot of people don't. Different strokes for different folks. I did find it interesting that the Chevy Colorado was down 16%. It's really only like 4,000 or 5,000 units. So it looks like a bigger number when you look at the percentage. But they sold 21,500 in Q1 of this year. The Frontier is up. So last year was 14,000. This year, 21,000. So the Frontier is up. It looks like a big number, 47.9%, but really, let's say 6,000 or 7,000 trucks that the Frontier's up this year compared to last year. I think a lot of that is due to the reliability aspect. People want something that they're not going to have to think about, the turbo or whatever. They've been out a little bit longer than some of the other ones, and people just feel really comfortable with the Frontier being a reliable platform. In addition to that, they seem more aggressive with their pricing. At least around my neck of the woods here in Colorado, I can get a better deal on a Frontier than almost anything else. You can get a Pro 4X Frontier for like what you can get maybe a mid or lower tier in the other brands. So I think that's pushing sales for them as well. And if you go drive them, whether I'm with other people driving them or myself, I like driving the Frontier. I like the vision. I like the seats. I like a lot about it. So it's a really comfortable vehicle if you're comparing the price and the fact that it comes in a little bit lower than some of these other ones. I think it's a good value. And I guess the last surprise in the midsize section would be the Ford Ranger. I drove a Ford Ranger with Trevor on the channel a couple weeks ago, or maybe it's been a month ago now. And we really liked the Ranger, had good turning radius, really good power in the 2.7. The Ford Ranger's up 19%, so up to 17,700 from 14,900. I would say it's kind of on par with maybe the GMC Canyon or the Colorado with regards to just how people perceive the reliability of Ford and GM versus, say, Nissan and Toyota. I think people look at Honda, Nissan, Toyota as having a little bit higher reliability in the midsize truck segment. The Gladiator's down 16%, but really only 2,000 units compared to last year. And the Honda Ridgeline doing Ridgeline things, like they kind of have this cult following. People are going to buy Ridgelines and they're used to them. They like the quirkiness and the different features in the Ridgeline, and they trust Honda. Just 10,000 for those. The Maverick is down a little bit, so we're talking 38,000 last year versus 33,000 this year, so down 10% for the Maverick. That'll be interesting to see if that goes up now with the Santa Cruz being done. So we'll see if the Maverick sort of recoups some of those sales. I think a lot of people that buy the Maverick, they want a little bit of payload and they want good mileage, and they're definitely not towing a lot of things. They know what the purpose of this truck is. And of course, at the bottom of the list here, this is pretty predictable. You've got the Silverado EV, the Ford Lightning, and the Hummer. All just sales are terrible. The Ford Lightning is discontinued, so that's partially why you see such a huge dip there. But the Silverado EV and the Hummer, I think there's a certain group of people that are going to buy these vehicles and really like them and like some features in them, but this isn't like your average truck buyer is not going to be buying Silverado EVs to, tow long distance or do farm ranch truck things every day. It's just not real common in that neck of the woods. So right or wrong, I personally don't want an EV truck. That's just me. I would much rather have a gas version. It's easier when you're towing a trailer. You don't have to unhook the trailer to charge unless you can find a pull-through charge unit. So there's just a lot of hassles with big vehicles being EVs. But love to know what you guys think, especially on the Ram front. I really think that Ram has momentum now. Hopefully they can kind of continue that momentum, keep those powertrains reliable. If the Hurricane and the Hemi are not spinning main bearings and they can stay super reliable on the transmission side of the house and they figure out all of their electrical gremlins, I do think Ram's going to continue to gain ground here. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but feels like they've got momentum right now. They have good looking trucks. If they can make them more reliable or slightly more reliable than the other brands, and people aren't in the dealership all the time, it's going to be a huge win for them. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Till next time.